Are you relig-ish? And what does it mean to be relig-ish anyway? I'm Rachelle Mee-Chapman, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Relig-ish. So there's this wonderful story Anne Lamott tells, and I'll give you the link below so you can listen to her tell it on a live This American Life, where she's on an airplane and she's thinking about matters of faith, and she thinks, it would be nice to be ish. And she had some friends who she considered Jewish. They weren't particularly religious, but they had the cultural influences. They got to practice the holidays and the traditions. They had all the rites and rituals that conveyed their family values to them from a very young age until they were grown-ups. And she thought, it's nice to be Jewish. Well, I think we can be relig-ish, by which I mean we have significant spiritual practices that nurture our soul and empower us to live out the core values that we believe in the everyday world. But we're not necessarily part of an institutionalized faith. Now, why wouldn't you just be relig-us and be part of an institutionalized faith? Well, what's kind of happened in a lot of faith traditions right now is that the practices of, say, church aren't in alignment with the core values of the teachings of Christ. So the things that we're asked to do, like prayer and worship and going to church twice a week and being in small groups, may or may not empower us to live out the things that Jesus taught, which are about social justice and bringing about healing and wholeness to the world and taking care of the widows and the orphans and making sure the outsiders are included and practicing love and not doing unto others what we would not have done unto us. And a lot of times the traditions of the religious institution don't actually give us the time or the skills to go and do those things. So sometimes if we want to be a person of faith, a person of belief, a person of intentional core values, we have to step outside of the relig-us and be just a little bit relig-ish. So here are some questions I have for you that might help you decide if you're relig-ish or not. You might be relig-ish if you follow the teachings of a particular religious leader, like Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or the Dalai Lama. You might be relig-ish if you want to pass on the things you value most to your children. You might be relig-ish if you believe in the power of ritual and tradition and habit and spiritual practice. You might be relig-ish if you're interested in the life of the soul and how the internal life of the soul impacts the external activities of everyday living. You might be relig-ish if you see the divine in nature and art, in music, in silence. You might be relig-ish if you respect the teachings of many religions and many spiritual paths. You might be relig-ish if you're post-church, practicing faith outside of an institution. And you might be relig-ish if you're accustomed to having a spiritual community, and so when you step outside of church, you start really missing tribe. If those things sound familiar to you, I just want you to know that you are not alone. There's a growing group of people who would self-identify as spiritual but not religious, although many of them are really quite religious because they like rites, rituals, and spiritual practices. But who aren't a part of the religious institution. And that growing group of people is starting to organize. So if you miss tribe, there are little pockets of these kinds of people who are starting to form together. And in the upcoming weeks, I'd like to talk more about deconstructed tribe. But for now, if you're interested in being part of a relig-ish tribe, you're welcome to come and join me at my tribe, Flock, which is an online soul care community for people who are churched, post-church, never been churched, and just interested in general in living an intentional life of the soul. I think you can have a spirituality that is rooted in your heritage and respectful of where you came from, authentic to who you are today, both your beliefs and your values and how you like to practice them, and creative enough to grow with you so that next time you don't have to lose your tribe in order to keep evolving as a growing human being. Do you believe? Are you ready to curate your past? Can you create your Relig-ish future? Will you reconstruct a new kind of faith? I think you are. I know you can. I hope you will. And I'm here to help. Until we meet again, I hope that you will get curious about the Relig-ish life, that you will trust your gut, and that above all, you will live from a place of love. Amen. Amen.